against the cuts campaign. And this is obviously an argument that we have to have not just in this room, but we have to take in throughout the cuts movement. And the reason why one of the reasons why that's incredibly important is that, for example, in Camden, there are so many cuts happening that there's now a childcare campaign and a library campaign, and people are fighting quite rightly to save their nursery and their community centre. And unless we're putting an argument that against really the genuinely good-hearted people like Charlie who are coming and saying we're going to help you, unless we put an argument about how we can fight all of the cuts and not just save one and then have another going, we're not going to be able to develop a movement. And the way that I think one of the most effective ways that we've actually done that in Camden is that we've had a series of local ward-by-ward meetings. Now, we could make a choice, like Hannah from the Socialist Party said earlier, that we could have turned our backs on the councillors who are planning to make the cuts. Actually, we've had in all of those meetings all of the local councillors, and they have felt more heat from the local people who said to them, what you're doing is not enough, almost unanimously in those meetings. That's the way that they've been put on the spot. And at the meeting that we held last week in Kentish Town, at the end of the meeting we were planning the action that we were going to take to save the services if the councillors go ahead with the cuts, as well as what we're going to do in the build-up to the cut-setting meeting. And one of the councillors said, can we come to the next meeting? And people said, yes, of course you can come, but don't expect us to love you if you voted for the cuts. And to be honest, I mean, what we've decided in Camden, we want a series of protests up until the 28th of February, when the councillors will be voting on the cuts. We want the biggest protest outside on that day, but 2 days later, we fixed our next public meeting where we'll be discussing what action that we're going to take, whether it's occupying the nurseries or the childcare centres that are threatened with closure. There's strike action planned by the teachers and by the Unison members in the borough. And to be honest, if we're going to build the kind of movement that really can bring this government down, then there are going to be Labour Party members that they're along with us, and the debates that we're having will continue whilst we build that fight. And as people have said, the key is the size of the struggle, and we can take a whiff from the student movement in this country and from Egypt to get a taste of the kind of struggle that can bring down this government.
My name is Doug Morgan from Birmingham Against the Cuts. I'd like to thank Charlene for speaking, really, because it seemed an incredibly difficult speech to deliver. But what I want to try and say is that the people in this room are by and large the people who are on your side when you're saying that you want to stand up and make certain that ordinary people don't face the brunt of the bankers' crisis. Because you see, I think there was a difficulty, you see, in the Labour Party, which is that for a whole number of years, and you know, you can debate the history, but certainly under the Blair years, one of the key things that came across is that people in the Labour Party felt that they had to be the managers of our areas. They would manage the services for us in order to deliver something better, or maybe not. And I think what we're really trying to say here is that we don't need more managers. What we need are more campaigners. What we need are more people who are standing up for what is right. And I think that what we're saying is we will stand with you over every single cut that you oppose. But what we're saying is that if you come with us and fight over more and more cuts, if the councils and councillors are saying they're not going to implement the cuts, that our movement could grow quicker, our movement could grow stronger, and our movement could bring down this government that is attempting to push through these cuts. And I think that we're not saying do this in isolation. You see, I think that Barry not so subtly said that if people are out there fighting over the cuts, if people are on the streets putting pressure over the cuts, that there will be a break within part of the Labour Party there that will say we shouldn't be pushing through the cuts and voting against it. And so if Barry is not so subtly saying that here, the duty of people here is to make certain that they have thousands of people at that budget setting meeting, that makes certain the councillors that are saying they don't want to push these cuts through are saying we are not alone. We represent the people that elected us. Come and join us in doing that. But I want to say that you won't be on your own anyway. In Birmingham, we've had some big movements against the cuts. Last week, 3,000 workers in unison voted unanimously to say that they want to be balloted against the cuts that are taking place there. Our refuse workers, who have been queried in the press, voted last week by 95% to continue their industrial action against the cuts and the scabbing operation that is taking place against them. And we are finding that more and more people, when I go around and do meetings for the National Union of Teachers to say that we want to have a ballot over pensions in order to defy this government, we have unanimous vote after unanimous vote in school meetings saying that people want to take strike action. And so I think you should be rest assured that there is a movement that is saying we will oppose the cuts, and what we're saying to you is come on, come with us. We're asking you to maybe do what you think is the impossible, okay, which is to stand up and say that all of these cuts can be defeated, but if you stand with us, the movement will grow stronger and grow quicker, and we can get this victory sooner rather than later.
Pete Firmin, Joint Secretary of the Labour Representation Committee and also Chair of my local anti-cuts campaign, Brett Fight Banners up there. Just to make one thing absolutely clear at the start, like the Socialist Party, like Right to Work, like the Coalition of Resistance, the LRC is fully opposed to the cuts, urges councillors to vote against the cuts and supports every occupation and strike against the cuts. Anybody has any doubts, you can pick up our leaflet outside on the stall, or you can look at our website, or you might have read the article in the Morning Star. That is our position, that is absolutely clear. But in terms of debate, I had a comrade come up to me earlier and say, I only know one Labour councillor who's going to vote against the cuts. Now I could name a few more, but I'm not going to argue, it's only a handful. But some people think, great, this proves a political point. Well, to me, the unfortunate political point it proves is the weakness of our movement. If we've only got a few councillors and no councils at the moment prepared to say, no, we won't implement the cuts, that is a sign of weakness. Not of strength, not of some great political purity. You see, when we make the comparisons with the 80s that the Stand Councils made then, let's not forget what the level of unionisation was, what the level of steward representation was, and other things was as well. It is not the same movement as it was in the 80s. One of the tasks we have in fighting the cuts is actually building up that movement so we can resist the cuts. And what councillors do, and again I repeat, I want to vote against the cuts, but what councillors do is a small part of that problem. Which National Union has urged its members, who are councillors, to vote against the cuts. Nobody has yet managed to tell me of one. And it doesn't matter whether it's a left union, like FBU, RMT, PTSA, or a right union. Not one union is urging its councillors to vote against the cuts. That is a task we have to take up. Unite, for all that Len McCluskey says he is opposed to the cuts, Unite has been sending its officers around the country urging Labour councillors to set budgets within the money being given to them by central government. That is a fact we face, right? Lots of local union branches may be taking up that struggle, and I support them wholeheartedly. But we do have to take up the issue. So it's not just about saying to councillors, it's also about saying to our unions, what are you doing about the issue? It's no good you making great speeches against the cuts if you're not actually urging your councillors to stand up against the cuts. Now, Charlene and councillors who take a position like her saying, well, we're protecting you from the worst effects. Well, we had a lobby last weekend of Sarah Tebber, who happens to be one of our local MPs and is Minister in the government. And guess what? She told us that we're protected from the worst effects of the cuts by having her in government. I don't know what the next layer of the dented shield is. It might be the IMF or something. When you talk to councillors who say, we don't have a choice and we're protecting you from the worst, then, you have to say to them, for a start, how far you're prepared to go, but more importantly, if there's a library occupation, what are you going to do? Are you going to send in the bailiffs? Is there a strike? Are you going to urge people to break that strike? Or are you actually going to stand with those people who are fighting against the cuts? Once you do that, unless you're going to go down the road of cut this, not that, then you have to stand up against all of those cuts. And it's not just a matter of, the councillors should do this. We have to build up the movement which encourages those councillors to do it. I can tell you from first-hand experience, there is a discussion within the Labour Party or amongst Labour Party members about what the councillors should do. It ranges across the spectrum. Not all of those people say they shouldn't set the budget, they shouldn't vote for the cuts, but an awful lot of them say they're not making enough noise about, in what they feel they've all stood. Our councillor, Brent, which is closing 6 libraries, the Labour leader says, we're transforming the library service. Excuse me, you are closing half the libraries, and you should be saying that. You should be saying, on your terms, I don't agree with this, but your terms, you're being forced to close the libraries. That way you build a movement. The councillors can help us build a movement. We can help put the pressure on the councillors to stand up against that. It is both a two-way thing. So, yes, we have to argue with the councillors, urge them to vote against. We also have to build that movement through our unions and so on that puts that pressure on. Last point, Barry said he hasn't had the communications from Hackney anti-cuts campaigns. And I hope that people who hear from Hackney take that on board. See, Hannah said the Hackney Unison AGM voted unanimously to go for strike action. That obviously hasn't been communicated to anti-cuts councillors like Barry. We have to have that communication, we have to keep that pressure up, we have to make sure that we go forward as far as possible together.
Okay, I'm Jack Brindelli, I'm from Norwich, and on Monday on Monday our council will be announcing its budget. Now, I have to agree with the previous speaker, we are not in the same movement as we were in the 1980s, because in the meantime the Labour Party have sold us out. I just wanted to make a quick point about the fact that I think cut this and not that is counterproductive, even on a kind of power-based level, which is what the Labour Party seems to operate on these days. If you end up appeasing the wishes of Eric Pickles, or whoever, you are propping up a sham democracy. And if you are claiming that you are representing, say, the downtrodden and the put upon and the poor, you should really be encouraging them and finding ways for them to take action in their local community, rather than claiming that you can do everything for them. It's a surefire way And then, of course, if you do put a Labour face to a Tory cut, eventually you'll find yourself out of office, in which case there will be Tory cuts to come.